Hey guys, I thought I'd do a short video just looking at how I record the guitar for the YouTube videos that I do, be it the Master the Guitar videos or my own personal videos at Mark Wiggin channel. Since I started doing the Master That Riff videos and such, I've gone through various ways of trying to capture the guitar sound. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't, but generally now I think I've got a nice setup that it gets a fairly decent guitar tone. So, to begin with, the way I used to do things was just to use the video camera's mic to capture the sound, just because it was easier. You just set up the camera, switch it on, hit record, you've got the video and audio, and then you just bung it up on YouTube. But of course you can run into problems there where you get much more sound of the room, so it can sound a bit distant, the guitar, or if you've got smaller rooms, it just sounds a little bit boxy. It doesn't, it just doesn't really have a kind of professional sound, for want of a better word. I've also tried using things like Guitar Rig, and that's good because it lets, especially if you're doing a video where you're speaking as well as recording the guitar, that separates up the vocal input and the guitar input. But all these emulators and things are really, really good, but there's nothing quite like the actual sound of a real guitar getting plugged into a real valve amp, if that makes sense. So I went back to the way of miking up the amp and recording if there was any speech, just recording it using a separate mic. So what I think I'll do is we'll talk about the steps I go through to capture the guitar sound. Now, I use my Comfort Roadhouse here. I've got it set, fairly high mids, got a reasonable bit of bass, mid, kind of halfway, 12 o'clock really with the treble. It's a really great sounding amp because it already has quite a nice range for recording, quite mid-rangey, and that's very nice for kind of capturing the sound of the guitar. But the mic placement is the thing that it can give you so much variation. Now I use a Shure SM58 mic, which is a vocal mic, but you can still use it for miking up the cabs. It's slightly different from an SM57, which is traditionally a kind of dynamic mic for miking up cabs. But I just use a single mic, and the way I have it set up personally is I have it kind of midway between the centre of the cone and the edge of the cone, and then maybe about an inch or so from the grill. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you the different tonal variation you can get just from placement of the mic. What I've got here in the looper pedal is just a little riff I recorded earlier, and what I'm going to do is, just holding the mic, I'm just going to move it about the kind of speaker area to let you hear the different sounds that you get. So here we go. So you can see there you've got quite a range. It tends to be the closer you get to the centre of the cone, the more high frequencies you have, the more kind of harsher sound I suppose you have. If you move out to the edge of the cone, it gets a little bit warmer or mellower, but you lose a little bit of that definition because you're losing those kind of higher frequencies. The closer you are to the grill cloth or closer to the speaker, it's a more kind of an immediate sound, and the more you kind of move the microphone back, you get more kind of air in between, in the sound, so it has a little bit more of a bigger sound, I suppose. So, as I said, I have it typically kind of halfway between and then maybe about an inch from the cloth, but some days I might move it about, some days I might bump into it, which I do quite a lot, so I have to kind of adjust it. But you tend to, as usual with a lot of these things, find what sounds best to your ear. You really want to get the sound sorted first before trying to fix it in your audio software, using EQ, whatever. That way you've got, if you've got that sound sorted to begin with, there's less work, but also you've got more of I suppose, an organic sound. It's the actual sound of the guitar through the amp, rather than having to tweak things with EQ. Now sometimes in some of the old videos, I got the mic placement a little bit wrong because I was trying to get a heavier sound or whatever, and I ended up getting a kind of nasty sounding tone. But once you've done that, there's not much you can do with it. There's only so much you can do with EQ. So it's important to try and get that initial sound right before you go ahead with more recording. So once you get mic placement sorted, you're ready to kind of capture that sound. Now what I do is I record audio using Logic on the Mac. I do some editing in there as well. Now what I've got here is a track that's set up to record that microphone. So that would just be the raw guitar sound. And I've also just got a little backing track here, so just for this video, I'll just do a short bit of jamming over this just to capture the sound. Okay, so I'll just record a quick bit of playing here over this backing track. Okay, so we've captured the raw guitar sound. This is what it sounds like. It's okay, maybe a little bit trebly, but you know, it's only for the purposes of this video, so it's just perfectly fine. So if we listen to that with the backing track, this is what it sounds like. Okay, already we can hear that's much better than just recording, say, from the audio on the camera. You've got no sound of the room or any kind of distant sound in the guitar. One thing you may say is it's maybe too kind of up in your face in the mix. So what you can do, and what I like to do sometimes, is I'll add a little bit of reverb to this just to kind of pop it a little bit back in the mix. So let's just add a little bit here. So I tend to do these things mostly by ear rather than, there's no kind of fixed settings that, you know, 20% of this or whatever. So let's just hear it on its own without the reverb. With the reverb. Okay, so I've just tamed it down a little bit there. If I put that on now with the backing track, this is what it sounds like. Okay, that's fine, but it's still kind of missing a little bit of something. It's still maybe too up in your face. So what you can do is add a little bit of delay to that. So let's just do that right now. I'm going to add a little stereo delay here, even though I'll keep everything mono. So with the reverb and the delay, it sounds like this. Okay, so immediately you can hear that maybe that's a bit too over the top. It's more kind of Passion and Warfare era Steve Vai than kind of the vibe I want to go here. So what I'm going to do is just let it play and then just use my ear again just to kind of tame it down. Yeah, that should be too bad. So let's hear that with the backing track. Sound pretty good. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to select that small section. Now what I'm also going to do is just cut this little bit off at the end, because if you hear the beginning of this, you have all this hiss from the amp. So I'm just going to cut that off. So it's much more of a cleaner kind of tack. So if I put it on now, it will sound like this. Okay, that's not bad. I'll maybe just bring down the backing track a little bit. Now, I could add compression here and do various other things, but most of the time I'm just wanting to put up decent audio over a video. I'm not exactly recording an album or doing anything here, so I don't need to spend too much time on it personally when I'm doing these videos. That sounds pretty good enough. So what I'll do is I'll export that and I'll show you what I do in the video editing software. Okay, so what I've got here is a video editor, which is Final Cut Express. What I've done here is I've imported the raw video file of me playing that just over that backing track. Now, what's different from what I usually deal with is because I'm using the screen capture and doing all that sort of thing, I don't actually have the camera audio. What I have is the video from the inbuilt webcam in the Mac plus the audio from my audio hardware. So actually what you're hearing on this video track is that microphone. What you would typically see, of course, here would be the video from the camera and the audio from the camera. So this is what it sounds like anyway. Okay, so what we want to do now is take that audio that we created in Logic and use it over this video. Now, the way I tend to sync it is just by looking at these waveforms. Now, this is going to be a little bit trickier today because I don't have, if I've recorded audio from a camera, the waveform is going to look similar to the waveform that I've got from Logic. But let's see how it goes. So this is the audio from that we created in Logic. Now, the good thing about this is I have this counting at the beginning. It's very, very faint in the original recording, sounds like this. Okay, but I also have that in the recording that I've made, so that's quite a good way to try and sync up if you've got a tricky waveform like this. So this is what the audio from Logic sounds like, plus it's got that counting at the beginning. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put that in the left channel, and so what I've done, I've split the original audio so it's now in the left channel, and the new audio that I want to put in it is in the right channel. And I'll just zoom in a little bit here, and what I'm needing to do is basically sync up these two waveforms. Now I can see tiny little blips, which I think are the drum hits at the beginning here. So if we just zoom right in, what I'm trying to do is essentially line these up. And I'll just shift it a little bit more. Okay, so it's a little bit ahead there. I mean, you can never get it exact. I mean, we're a tiny kind of frame difference here, so let me just move it back a little bit more. Okay, let's try that. So if I play, come back out again and play it, hopefully that audio should be kind of be in sync. So in the left channel, you're going to hear the original, and in the right channel, we're going to hear the stuff that I'm replacing it with. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'll just mute that. Okay, now we have this video with this new replaced audio, and it sounds like this. So there you have it. Hopefully this video insight into the kind of way I do things will help. I've talked about using Logic and Final Cut Express and all this sort of stuff, but really if you've got any, be it a PC or Mac or whatever, or run it on Linux, whatever like that, as long as you've got a way of taking your video and audio from the camera and getting on the computer, and then using some audio recording software to get a much cleaner kind of professional sounding recording of the actual audio that you're playing, and then a video editor that will allow you to, if possible, match waveforms so you can easily swap out the old audio and put in the new audio. That way you get a much kind of nicer, maybe more professional sound on the kind of YouTube videos. So thanks for watching. What I'll do is I'll just let the video end now with that little bit of noodling that we did.